Yeah, g'day everyone. I know everyone's just seen that thumbnail and hopefully you've all got a big smile just like I do on my face. G'day and welcome to the TryPod family to our round 23 NRL preview. We are down to 5 rounds remaining. And let me welcome in a man who was on a 5-winning streak for the best bets. Winnie, how are you going, mate?
Yeah, great. Thanks, mate. I just want to say off the bat, I didn't make that cover image for the show. When I saw it, I said that's asking for trouble. But I want to tell people we do have a big pod in store for you. And that's off the back of a perfect round, 2-0 on best bets. Won the mixed matchup convincingly. We won yet another same game multi. That was 550 Knights upset win into Kalen Ponga, who scored the opening try. As you said, that's 5 best bets saluting in a row going back to round 21. And I've got 5 best bets, in fact. Do you want me to lead straight into them now?
Mate, jump straight into our best bets. It's what everyone loves and it's what they're here for.
All right, well, we don't make you guys wait too long, but I just want to preface this by saying this has to be a first ever for the TryPod. All 5 of my best bets are on favourites and all solid favourites at that. So let me race through them and you'll get the in-depth description later. So firstly, Warriors -8, $1.88 alt line, top sport. They are at the Gold Coast. They are full strength off a bye while the Titans played Sunday. Still no Tino. I'm doubtful they can get up. With the effort required to stay with the Warriors, I'm going Knights on Saturday, who play the Finns in Perth. The Finns gave it all in Rocky last week. They came up short. The Knights are one of the hottest teams in the league. I don't think the market fully understands how good Newcastle are going yet, even as these lines are increasing. I'm going to take it again. I think that Newcastle will turn it on in a Saturday afternoon showcase game and avenge their loss to the Finns earlier this year. Then I'm going Rabbitohs, who also play in Perth, the second of the doubleheader. They play the Sharks. 2 teams travelling in opposite directions. South's at full strength. Cobwebs are out, no excuses. Cronulla's reeling. Kennedy now out as well. I just don't see how the Sharks can hang with the Bunnies. Even if they fight tooth and nail, they could still lose by a couple tries or more. I'm going Eels on Sunday with their season on the line. Sorry, I don't know if I said that. The South Sydney Rabbitohs best bet is -11.5, and you can copy that from me on Dabble right now. That's $1.82 best price. The Knights was a -8, $1.80 alt line on Top Sport. Then Sunday, my 4th best bet is Parramatta to win both halves. $1.81 on Top Sport is the best price. As I said, do or die. You got Brown is back. DeBellin is out for the Dragons. I have no faith that St. George can stick with the Eels in this. And don't forget, points differential important this time of year. So I can see Parramatta going on with it, even if they're up big already at halftime. And then finally, Canberra. I've got -10.5 at $1.90 as my 5th and final best bet. Plus or minus is a lost cause for the Raiders. Theirs is too poor, but having not won a single game this year by more than 10, their time is now. West are missing 2 key forwards. I'll drop that graphic back on the screen just to help people find all these again. So you've got a weakened West. You've got Canberra having been embarrassed at home, kind of like Para was embarrassed last week. What an opportunity to remain at home and get to play last place on the ladder. So I'm tipping the Green Machine does it in style. So there you have it. 5 big best bets. And wait till you hear my mixed matchup. You're going to love that one as well if you like the sound of those.
5 best bets. I believe that's the most we've had this year. What's the TryPod record of most amount of best bets given out for
mate, it was the Wild West years ago. We could have 40 or 50 in a week. We used to find that many. The bookies have cottoned on to so many of the edges that we've found over the years. That's just absolutely impossible now. But in modern times, this season, 5, have we had 6 in a round? It's 5 is right up there. And for them to all be laying the lumber as well is not like me. But people, you guys watching live, tell me which ones I'm wrong on.
Yeah, very interesting picks. I like them. I think they all make sense. As I said, 5 in a row, looking to extend that. If we can get a perfect round here, we'd have 10 in a row. That would be absolutely insane. And we are live, so we want to hear your thoughts as we go through. Whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, we can't bring that up on the screen for others to see as well from different platforms. We will jump into our round preview in just a moment. But before we do so, we've actually got a very special clip. Now, the guy you're going to hear from here is a very, very smart individual. We're very lucky to have his time. So without further ado, Winnie, if you've got that clip ready, let's play this clip right now.
You know what? Of course, I don't have that clip ready, but let's play a clip from another smart individual that will still help set up the round, and I'll get the one that you were referring to. Let's hear some market insights.
It's Tristan Merlihan here from Top Sport, and we had a week where a lot of the calculations and the finals structures that we might have thought were going to progress have flipped on their head with some upsets or some results that have caused a little bit of a change in strategy for the eight. Primarily the Titans, obviously upsetting the Cowboys when they were making their big run, and the Knights getting over the top of Canberra, which was a massive game with a lot of implications both sides. That was actually our worst result of the weekend, the Knights against Canberra. The Knights were absolutely backed off the map plus the start, so punters on the plus and then also on the head-to-head. The other game that we actually had a good result on was the Broncos against the Roosters, where there was a lot of support for the Roosters to keep it tight, and Brisbane obviously came out of the boxes and won very, very well, and probably could have won by even more. So that pretty much ended the Roosters' chances of making the finals. And then the other game, which was pretty costly later on in the weekend, was the Panthers against the Sharks, where Penrith just showed what a force they're going to be come the finals time, where 28-0, obviously, their defence was so good, and that one, the minus punters were always pretty comfortable in that game. Moving on to this weekend, we've got a few other games that are obviously very important for the finals. The Roosters Manly probably is the last chance for saloon for both of these sides. Penrith Storm is an absolute blockbuster. That's gone from 9.5 into 8.5. The overs have been backed in that game, which is a little bit interesting. And then the Queensland Derby, the Cowboys against the Broncos, that's going to be an absolute cracker. The Cowboys have been specced at the plus. We know the amount of games these guys have had over the last few years, how close they always be. The Cowboys hit a little road bump there last weekend. The Broncos have been absolutely flying. The biggest move of the weekend by far and away is the Eels against the Dragons. Obviously, Dylan Brown back. The Eels need to win to keep their chances of finals football alive, and probably improve their for and against as well, because that might be what it comes down to in about 4 or 5 weeks' time. Good luck if you're having a bet, and obviously gamble responsibly. Thanks.
Great stuff there from show sponsor Tristan, the CEO of Top Sport. And time to hear from another very smart individual. Have we got that clip ready, Winnie, from the professor?
Yeah, you flatter me, mate. I know the one you're talking about. I've been in the lab and I wanted to share this clip. You may have already seen doing the rounds on social media. And then I'll just talk a little bit more about it after we have a listen. So I spent way too long on this. My computer crashed about 4 times, but I've simulated the NRL season 1,000 times. You know how Doctor Strange did it in the Avengers, 14 million outcomes, kind of like that, but with me simulating NRL Premiership games. The ladder predictor tool's awesome and give you an idea of how it might play out, but the problem with that is it's all absolutes. You've either got to pick Brisbane to win or North Queensland to win, whereas what I did was plugged in the relative probability for every single remaining game, and then I played out the season 1,000 different times so I could see how many times a certain team finishes top of the ladder, top 4, top 8, and here are some of my interesting findings. Minor Premiership, I've got the Panthers taking it out 71% of the time. Final top 4 spot, most likely Melbourne, 62%. The Rabbitohs at 33% though, so $4 in the market, still good value. Top 8, Canberra 84%, North Queensland 71%, Knights 61%, Sharks only 36%, Eels 35%, Manly 22%. Sorry, cut off there. Any questions people have about that, hit me up on the show. We can respond. I let my nerdy side out for that one. But at this time of year, people are always looking for an edge in those futures markets. And I think this is a very worthwhile exercise. That, of course, it was a bigger project than I expected. Put a lot of time into that. But it's an awesome model that now I've got. I can massage and manipulate as we go. Every result, I can feed that in. As anything changes, and things will still change, I can keep updating that. The biggest feedback I got from people was, why didn't you mention New Zealand? And it wasn't that they're not in there. It's just that they're not really in contention for the minor prem, but they're basically a lock for top 4. So I was just talking about those interesting junctions. Same for Brisbane. I didn't mention Brisbane, but Brisbane's pretty much got that remaining 28% chance of winning the minor prem if the Panthers don't get it. And people ask me, what about finals? That would be a separate model, so I might need to do that later. But one other thing, Clarkey, I found quite interesting. We've got 11 teams still in contention, really. I see it like 6 sides. The 6 I mentioned for the top 8 percentages are fighting for 3 spots. With 5 weeks of fixtures to go this season, there's literally only about 3 or 4 games in the whole season that don't have a bearing on finals. There was never more than 1 game a week that didn't have a bearing on how the finals are going to shake out. So I just think that's awesome, because basically every game is going to be so meaningful.
Absolutely. And I think even if your side is maybe playing a side that's out of finals contention, for other fans, they might be watching, let's say the Titans were playing the Eels. Titans fans would be watching, and Cowboys fans might be eagerly watching, saying, well, I hope the Titans win, to sort of upset those sides that are around the 8 as well. So literally every game from this point has implications for a large fan base of teams that are competing for the 8th there. I do have one final question before we get into our preview. It's a really serious one, actually. You mentioned Doctor Strange. If you were in a Marvel movie, what superhero would Jacob Wynn be?
You've put me on the spot there. Why don't we open it up to the followers? I'd be very interested to see what they say. I know I am a bit strange, so I've already thrown him out there. I don't follow it like that closely to know. Have you got one for me?
No, I was trying to think of a smart one while you were talking, but I'm not quite that intelligent. So let's move straight into
someone will give me a good one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the comments roll through. Thursday night, it's the Roosters v Sea Eagles at the SCG. The line is set at -4.5 now in the Roosters' favour. That has moved to us 3.5 earlier today. For the Roosters, Egan Butcher is out, so Suia Wong moves to starting back row, and Drew Hutchinson joins their bench. For Manly, Ben Trbojevic returns, Christian Tuipulotu is out, so Raymond Tuimalu Vega comes onto the wing there. Now, this really is about as do or die as it gets for both sides, you'd have to imagine. And I don't know which side that suits, so I'll go to you. Do you have a preference in this one?
How about Gambit from X-Men, right?
Gambit
Isn't he a bit of a punter at heart? Or Ant-Man? I'm not the biggest in stature, but I can see Professor X. I've got the same hairstyle as him, so maybe that's not a bad call either. You know what? Manly Roosters now to get our teeth sucked into round 23. Don't forget, this game a year ago was the beginning of the end for Manly. I don't want to go over all that jersey stuff again, but it's kind of funny this time around. It's the Roosters who come in virtually cooked, and it was a challenging one for me to read off the bat. I don't have a play in this game because I've got the Roosters, who I know are dead in terms of season ambitions, but I still believe at this point they are the better team than Manly. They are in front of their season ticket members. And the Sea Eagles have been far from convincing last 2 weeks. They've only won by 4, where they led by 30, and then won by 6 against a pretty weak St. George. But it depends how you read into those games, because at various stages, Manly scored 5 straight tries against Cronulla and 4 straight against St. George to, snatch hold of those games and ultimately be enough to build a lead that they held on to. If I had to play this game, I could only play Manly because I know what I'm getting, a side that's definitely motivated and season's still alive, but I just can't quite do it. I don't know. Is it Roosters bias still in me? I'm just wary of what the Roosters could do in the absence of pressure. And I don't trust Manly, even though their season's on the line. They have not shown me enough to prove to me they're always going to be consistent for a full 80.
Difficult one to tip. Manly have done this year. Roosters have just done this. So if I have to, I'm going to lean with the Roosters with the home advantage there at the SCG, where they have won 3 of their last 4. And also being a cricket or AFL oval traditionally, they did play a whole home season on there, so there is that advantage there. They've won 6 of their last 9 against Manly. These sides did meet recently as well. I think it was round 18, and Manly won that by 2 points. But I thought that game was just extremely lackluster. There really wasn't too much separating both sides. They were both poor, realistically, if I have to give a brutal assessment of that game. So I will give the Roosters another chance here. I think if they can get their start right like they did against the Titans, they are a chance to just pull away from Manly in this one, because we did see last week with the Sharks, 2 weeks ago, rather, with the Sharks, that Manly are susceptible of conceding in quick bunches, and the Roosters showed us against the Titans they can score in quick bunches. Problem is, they haven't done it with any great consistency this year. So if I absolutely had to make a play here, I would favour Roosters at the line, but I'm certainly not too confident in that prediction at all. Friday, 6 p.m, it is the mighty Gold Coast Titans up against the New Zealand Warriors at Seabus Super Stadium. The line is set at -8.5 in the Warriors' favour. No changes for their side. For the Titans, Jojo Fafita is out, so Aaron Schultz moves into the centre. This one seems like an easy one to tip on paper. I know you've got a best bet here, so maybe a chance to tell us a little bit more why.
It does seem easy, and I felt like it seemed easy last week to tip against the Titans, but something held me back last week. It's a funny feeling, and that ended up being right to stay off. There was more than met the eye on Sunday. And now I think maybe some people will stay away from the Titans thinking that they could pull the upset, but it's a very tall order to do it 2 weeks in a row. And they're the exact same magnitude underdog, 8.5 points. My best bet -8, a flat 8, $1.88 on Toppy. So note that if the Warriors win by 8, that's a scenario where we would get our money back, which is why I'm sacrificing the 7 cents there. And I discussed the main reasons why I really do like New Zealand in this one. Whereas I think the Cowboys were clearly below their best a week ago. We talked about Nane being out. Val Holmes gets a sin bin during the game. The Cows just looked out of sorts. However, the fact that the Titans have put up one of their best efforts of the season and accomplished that victory, I think removes an element of complacency for the Warriors, because they've just seen what the Titans were able to do. They can game plan basically how to stop the Titans doing it again. And I mentioned before, Tino's still out. That's a massive out. Don't dismiss it because the Titans have got a couple of big wins this year without Tino, that they don't miss him. The Warriors' arguably greatest strength is this force and relentlessness of the forward pack, and you really want Tino combating that. He's not going to be there. Another reason why I think this is such a tough matchup for the Gold Coast is that the Titans are the type of side that can strike an opponent that loses focus or that has a lapse. What New Zealand's really shown me this year is this high disciplined football and high focus all the way through the 80 minutes. So I just could see them just taking the game away from the Titans and really frustrating them. There's players in here like Dave Fafita, Jaden Campbell, Brimson, who can make things happen, and I do fear. But again, 5 days later after upsetting the Cows, can you raise that effort again against a fresh opponent and be within 8 of the Warriors? I don't really see it, so I was pretty confident in that best bet.
Warriors are always so tough to tip as a Titans fan, because they truly have been our bogey side over the years. There's been some truly strange runs where they've run for like 4 years in a row over us. We've done the same, etc., etc. I won't give an official tip, but I will give a confidence rating of 5.5 out of 10 for my Titans. I'm pretty much smack bang down the middle, but the optimism in me has a slightly over. I do think we're a side that plays well with confidence, and we have had some great performances this year, riding that wave of confidence. We've won our last 3 against the Warriors. That included a field goal win from Tanner Boyd over in New Zealand last year in the final regular season game. But I do think you have to respect the Warriors. They're full strength. They're coming off a bye where they are 1-1 this year, coming off byes. They haven't dropped too many games against bottom sides that they shouldn't have. The only 2 I could really pick out were probably the Roosters and Knights. At the time they met them this season, they probably should have got both of those wins. They have had somewhat of a favourable draw, and they have come up short in a lot of their tests against the quote-unquote elite side. So whilst I fully respect the Warriors, I think this game will be a lot closer than people expect. So I actually would play my Titans to the line and half. I don't know. I just have a gut feeling in this one that we're going to show up and we're going to play for something a little bit more, which is something you can't say we've done for every game this year, because it's a gut feeling. Would I back it with cash? Probably not. Just a tip. Our Friday night blockbuster does not get much bigger than this. It really doesn't. It's the Panthers v Storm at Bluebet Stadium in Penrith. The line is set at -8.5 in the Panthers' favour. For the Panthers, they will be without Tyrone Peachey, so Zach Hosking moves to centre. Isaac Tungo is named in reserves, though, and I suspect he would come into that centre spot. For the Storm, they welcome back Nelson Asafa Solomona at back row. This contest for me, Winnie, absolutely looms as game of the round. Do you look at either side with great confidence in this one?
I mean, on paper, what a blockbuster we got Friday night. Then I kind of question, is any game involving Penrith at home a blockbuster when you can't really be sure if the opponent will get within 10 points of them? And that's the question we're going to answer here. The line's 8.5, 9.5. So do people think Melbourne can get within 10 of Panthers? I mean, if they play as well as last week, they were super impressive in that emphatic home victory over the Eels, and they do get Big Nelson back into the side. So there's confidence and there's ability there. The Panthers are close to full strength. We can't forget Lenyu's out, and Tungo, he is in the reserves. So that would be a big boost because he was in career best form before getting injured. I do give the Storm a chance in this one, and you guessed it, for the reasons why number 6, 7, and 9 on that team. But plus, Eli Katoa came back last week. I thought Tepai Moeroa was really strong off the bench, and that's something you have to do. You know, the bench has to come on and not let up whatsoever if you're going to go toe-to-toe with the back-to-back premiers for the duration, especially when Cleary has the ball on a string the way he currently does. And we saw what Penrith did to the Storm without Cleary in Melbourne. And that was just a few weeks ago. And you could argue that Melbourne wants to make amends for that. I think they conceded 36 unanswered points at one point. But like Penrith hasn't forgotten that Melbourne won this corresponding fixture a year ago in Penrith as well. I've already heard Ivan reference that in his interviews. And when you're a team as good as Penrith, you know, if they're locked in, they can win by almost as many as they want. You just want to be sure they're motivated. And recently, they've been dialed in because Cleary's just gotten back, and I feel like it's re-energized the team. And in this game, you're at home against Melbourne, a side that beat you and a side that's been a rival. So there's no real question that Penrith will come to play. And I'll say the same I said last week. I need a lot of good reasons if I want to back against a side like that. I don't have enough, so I'm going to stay away. Other than I will be cheering on Penrith because that would do a real solid for our South's top 4 bet.
Yeah, absolutely. We want Panthers to win here, and I'm going to tip them as well. They've had 2 great weeks since Nathan Cleary's return, which I completely agree with you. It has completely re-energized their attack, their defense, but this looms as their first proper test with respect to their previous opponents. Look how poorly the Eels played last round. I thought they were really, really poor, and I think that might have been a contributing factor as to why the Melbourne Storm are able to bounce back and look so good. So whilst I fully respect the Storm's ability to go, we lost one to the Knights and we bounced back impressively against the Eels, Panthers are a different side, particularly in defense, where I don't think they're going to give them anywhere near as much as what that Eels side did. Panthers have won 4 of their last 6 against Storm, and one of those losses, which you referenced, was like razor close. I think it was a try saver on Viliami Kikau right at full time. It was something absolutely crazy. And that's since they lost the 2020 NRL Grand Final to them. They've also won their past 7 at home. I'm going to put out a bold prediction for this one. I reckon the Panthers hold the Storm to less than 3 tries to really send a premiership message to the competition. Sounds a little bit crazy given Storm are coming off a 46-point game, but that's my bold prediction for this one. At this stage of the year, though, we do know what Craig Bellamy brings to us, rather. So there is certainly merit in that plus 8.5 line as well if you are looking at the Storm in this one. I've got Panthers here. Not too sure as far as the line is concerned. My only bold prediction for this one is less than 3 tries for the Storm. And don't forget, every week we are cooking up a same-game multi thanks to Better. Our Better sign-up link is in the show description here live, and if you were listening as a podcast. And of course, if you do sign up, make sure you message the TryPod page on Facebook. But before you sign up to any bookie, think, what are you prepared to lose today? Set a deposit limit. For free and confidential support, call the number or visit the website on screen now. And Winnie, have you had any thoughts this week as to which game we might go for our Better same-game multi yet?
I've been thinking all about these best bets, so people will have to stay tuned. I picked the right one last week, so we'll let you know Friday whether we do go for this game or we could build it into one where we may perceive a bigger edge on Saturday. I know the exact match you were just talking about before too. It wasn't Kikau. It was Kikau saving a try. He held Justin Olam up, right? It was like the final play of the game. That was in Penrith between these sides. I think it must have been 2021. And I remember it well because I'm pretty sure I had Panthers as a best bet there. So he saved my bacon on that occasion. Whether it's that close this time around, we'll see. But you've got to love the rivalry between these clubs who've had a lot of success in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, that was a special game of footy there. Saturday, 3 p.m, it's the Cowboys v Broncos at Queensland Country Bank Stadium up there in Townsville. The line is set at -4.5 in the Broncos' favour, who welcome back Jesse Arthurs and Brendan Piacura. For the Cowboys, Valentine Holmes failed the NRL judiciary last night, so he has been suspended. Zach Labour looms as his likely replacement, as well as Griffin Neame and Heelan Lukey returning via the interchange. This has been a classic derby and a fantastic rivalry for a number of years now. I think you had Broncos as a best bet, so you don't see the Cowboys bouncing back here at all?
I didn't have Broncos. I think you might be remembering that I said on Sunday I would play Brisbane, and that's another time where watching the recap pays off. I mean, this was Pick'em last weekend. Once the Cowboys had lost, I think the line was more like 1.5, 2.5 Brisbane, but I said live, it wouldn't be still available on Wednesday. Here we are. It's 4.5. So as you mentioned, Lukey out, but Lukey in, but Holmes out. I'd love to know what North Queensland was thinking. He got 2 weeks regulation high shot for mine. The Challenger, now he's got 4 weeks. How did they think they were going to get that downgraded? I don't know. That's a massive error in judgment now, and it's costly. This is not just an electric Origin caliber outside back, but your goal kicker as well. Now you got to play your big rivals, Brisbane, who were highly impressive at the Gabba, dismissed the Roosters. We already talked about how the Cows were so lacking, in fact, held scoreless against the Titans, in the second half there on Sunday. If we want to excuse that loss, we can say maybe they're looking ahead to this matchup, and I wouldn't be so foolish as to write off the Cowboys and forget all of their great form they've shown in the last 6 weeks just because they had one bad game. You are allowed to have one bad game here or there. But on the other hand, have the Cowboys beaten anyone like Brisbane on this kind of 6-7 week run? You may look at the schedule and say they did beat Penrith, but that was in an Origin-affected week. So I just wonder how many opportunities are the likes of Robson, Drinkwater did and going to get to do their thing. I know they're going to be at home and they're determined, but this Brisbane side are so strong. Someone asked, can anybody stop the Panthers? I mean, Brisbane's a side that possibly can. I'm not willing to, engrave the trophy with Penrith for a third time yet. Brisbane's one of those sides that's an absolute contender. And in the back line, Walsh is back now, Staggs and Farnworth, so hard to stop. Reynolds, one of the form players in the comp as well, controlling the game. And then that's before you even mentioned Brisbane's rampaging forward pack. And I must admit that the Cowboys have got a pack that could match it with the Broncos. So I give the Cowboys a chance in this one. And I'd probably agree with the comment earlier. It might have been Ryan said that this is his game of the round. And I think there's something extra exciting about these two meeting at daytime. I know Brisbane's a superior team. I know Brisbane's going better, and it gets compounded by the Cows missing their goal kicker. For me, a line around 6 would be justified, so it wasn't strong enough for a play. But I would probably lean to Brisbane. Just, had the line been shorter like it was a few days ago, then it probably would have been among my best bets.
Yeah, before I jump into my pick, my apologies for mixing up the best bets there. For anyone interested in listening, I actually don't live. I'm trying to remember as we go live what they were. I thought this was one of them. I am going to take Broncos here, as I just feel like the Cowboys, the last round loss to the Titans has probably taken a little bit of wind out of their sails. We're talking a side that was crushing a 6-game winning streak and somehow it didn't defeat a side at the time that was sitting just outside of the bottom 4. Outside of that 6-game win streak, can I be honest? I think the Cowboys have been really ordinary this year. Like, that winning streak was awesome, but really, apart from that, there's been times this year where I thought they would have been definitely missing the top 8. Whereas for the Broncos, I've just been impressed with them every single game. And I don't think when you're trying to get back on course, your biggest rivals that are traveling in second position and looking awesome this year in the Broncos are the right team to do it against. I will say the Cowboys have a great home record. They've won their last 6 straight at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. So if you do like the Cowboys, potentially that's a stat you look into there. But I'm going to go with the Broncos here. Because they remain in the hunt for the minor premiership, I think they embrace pressure well this year. I put all that together. I think they should be able to put away this Cowboys side. They've also averaged 36 points in the last month. And if they can score that average again, certainly I think they can defend the Cowboys at 30. And so I would play the Broncos at the line there. -4.5, absolutely. They can get that average, Winnie. That's out of reach for the Cowboys, in my opinion.
And the question there about whether the Cowboys would still make the 8, they could. I think they could slip out of the 8 with a loss and with certain other results. That doesn't mean it would be permanently. For mine, I think the Cowboys could lose this and still make the 8. I had them in the Sims getting into the top 8, I think 71% of the time. So with a loss here, it would drop closer to 50-50. I can actually plug that in and let people know. Maybe I could do that in a minute. But it's a crucial game. I think, as I said on Sunday, the loss to the Titans may have knocked out the Cows' top 4 chances, but they're definitely still live for top 8. Regardless of all that, it's an important game for obvious reasons when you welcome Big Brother up into your house.
And just looking at the ladder now, Cowboys currently in 8th. If they were to lose this, Knights, Seagulls, and Eels could all leapfrog them with wins and knock them outside of the 8. But then, as Andrew just said, they do have the bye next week. So maybe Cowboys look at this win and go, you know what, let's get a big win against our rivals, go into the bye round. Really, really exciting game. And I agree with Ryan, this could be game of the round. Next game is a team you're very high on, the Newcastle Knights. It's Saturday, 5:30 p.m. They're up against the Dolphins at Optus Stadium in Perth, and the line is set at -9.5 in their favour. They have no changes to their lineup for the Dolphins. Cody Nicarima has a new position again. He's in the centres this time for Ewan Aiken, and Milford and SOS are their new halves. Knights are a really impressive run lately, and I've got this best bet right. You're confident they can replicate that in Perth?
That's right. That's my second best bet. So -8, the alt line, $1.80 on Toppy. This is out far west. It's a slight shame that the double headers doesn't shape up to be as competitive as it might have been a few weeks ago. You've got a couple of these sides making the trek who I fear could be a little away from their best. And that would be the case with the Dolphins here. And it's not that I doubt Wayne getting his troops up for a special occasion, and you're bringing the game to Perth. It is a big occasion, but to get yourself up from the narrowest of defeats and play an opponent that owes you one, because people may have forgotten all the way back in round 3, the Dolphins got their first ever away win, beating the Newcastle in Newcastle, and Newcastle had the most horrible injury and suspension ward you've ever seen. Can the Dolphins replicate that outcome? I find it kind of hard to believe, because there's not much more I can tell pod followers about Newcastle that I haven't already said. They're flying, they're confident, they're motivated, and they're on a mission right now. There's a question, can anyone outside the top 4 win the premiership? I won't go that far with the Knights, but there is another team travelling to Perth that I could make a case for soon, Michael. But the Knights are everything you want in a team to back. They're healthy, the players are in form, and they're just really enjoying their footy together, really ripping in. The only issue is that the market's catching up. But I think the fact that they were underdogs a week ago, I thought they'd win. You know, the market still didn't respect them. And Tristan said that people were smashing the Knights. I think there's some maybe people listening to the pod, and maybe other people that are sharing that opinion that market underestimated them. And we've got a single-digit line here. So I think we just keep going back to that well. It's 5:30 kickoff Eastern Seaboard time, but it's 3:30 local. So it's like an afternoon game, and I've got a side whose outside backs are slick as, led by the freshman, KP, serving it up. I could see them basically laying on more of the same, which, they handed out capital punishment last week in Canberra. They could do the same to the Finns, I'm sorry to say. So that's why I laid the points for my best bet.
When I looked at this one, I actually did weigh up tipping the Dolphins outright. I probably can't go that far. 1, just for the form Knights are in. 2, Knights fans will think I'm the biggest hater because I have tipped against them for a lot of their current winning streak. But I just get the feeling that on this run home, the Dolphins are going to spur a few upsets on the way there. Over in Perth, an occasion for them. We know they have done occasions well this year. Bennett, a great people and person motivator. I can see a world where the Dolphins take it to the Knights here. We saw last week, sides are in form and they look invincible until they don't in the Cowboys there. I am cautious though. The Dolphins have only won outside of Queensland once this year. And I think that's something you really have to consider. They're not winning games in New South Wales. That would have been the game against the Knights actually in Newcastle. So
off the top of my head, no. Well, they beat St George away as well. So they've won.
The Dragons got him, didn't they?
Oh, that's right. They lost to the Dragons. I should remember that because I had a best. Yeah, so I can't think of any other Dolphins wins outside of Queensland. So if that fact's correct, then yes, it was against Newcastle.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through the ladder now.
That's right. When they beat the Dragons, that was back at Suncorp.
Yeah. A lot of their wins have come at Suncorp this year. They did beat them in there. They lost to the Warriors. Yeah, they have not got the job done outside of Queensland this year.
I mean, the Sharks win might have been a designated away game, but of course that was Magic Round.
Yeah.
So good call. Don't think they can do it to Newcastle twice, but we'll find out. You got anything more on this game, or you want to go to the second of the doubleheader?
Yeah. Just to add, if you do read into you probably do take that Knights one. But then if you do think that the Dolphins are capable of kind of harnessing everything around them like they have earlier this year, maybe that 9.5 line does speak to you. I would prefer the Knights in this one if I had to make a play. But Wayne Bennett has never lost a game in Perth before. He's only been there 3 times. So it's not really a stat. I'm only joking around.
Okay. Still something.
Saturday.
He should coach the new Perth franchise then.
Yeah.
See if he can
Could you
keep
imagine
that one
that?
going.
The big billboard. Our coach has never lost in this state. And then just the fine print down the bottom. He's only been here 3 times. Wouldn't that be a blast? Saturday, 7:30 p.m. It's the Rabbitohs v Sharks doubleheader, also at the same stadium. The line is set at -12.5 in the Bunnies' favour. They have Burgess and Cheekham returning for them. However, Hame Sally and Jacob Host are out. For the Sharks, this is, in my opinion, one of the biggest losses they could possibly have right now. It's Will Kennedy. He's out with a hamstring injury. So Connor Tracy moves to fullback. And I think Will Kennedy is so underrated to this side. I know you're confident the Bunnies finish strong this year. I know you're tipping them here. I know you've got a best bet here, and I absolutely echo it. But let's go to you for your thoughts on this one.
That's right. There was only one side I could really contemplate. You're coming through a little broken up. I don't know if there's anything you can do on the fly with checking your, I don't know, if the neighbor's Wi-Fi, ask them to boost it if possible. But anyway, we'll make do best we can. And that's right. There was only one side. Like I was thinking I'm either on the Bunnies or I'm leaving it because, as I said, on the top, 2 sides going in complete opposite directions. And look, the Bunnies scored us a best bet win last week covering the first half, although they didn't actually carry it on for the full game. But this week, I have plenty of reasons to believe that they'll build on that performance. That win pulled South Sydney into the top 8. So right there, it should be impossible for Cronulla to win this game because it's against the top 8 side. That's what some people might believe. I actually said on the recap, Cronulla were very brave. I know they lost by 28 points and had no attack, but conceding only 28, if you saw that game against Penrith and the circumstances, was pretty tough. However, this one, I think South's every bit as formidable as Penrith, in terms of attacking prowess, and they haven't demonstrated their powers in quite a few months, to be honest. You might question, is there a fatigue factor for the Rabbitohs? I'm thinking back, Sunshine Coast, Tamworth, now Perth, but I think when so many of your key players have had a few weeks out, they're still relatively fresh. If anything, I could argue that this Rabbitohs side will be relishing the kind of road tripping together, knowing what they're capable of. And I think that this could be a big statement game. Whereas for Cronulla, they're just desperately trying to stop the rot, come out with a good performance. A win would do wonders for them. But when you have to play Penrith and you have to play South Sydney, these aren't teams that give you much oxygen. And as you mentioned, Kennedy's a huge loss. Like when I look at the Cronulla lineup, I'm really looking through the personnel going, which players are going to, turn the tide in a game their way when it's against them. And you would look to Nico, but his form slump is real. Kennedy was that game breaker. Teague Wilton has not been highly discussed, but Cronulla's really missed him on the left edge. And Nikora was having such a great year, but his form is really tied to Nico playing outside of Hines. So I just don't know who the Sharkies turn to in this one, whereas Souths are littered with stars. That's why I'm not going to feel silly, laying another high line with Souths, a side that I know can score in our surges of points too.
And I absolutely agree. I am going Souths here. Usually I'm somewhat worried about the bounce back factor because we know the Sharks have shown some class this year. The issue I have is they have not shown that class against the elite sides. And I do think the Bunnies at their best are an elite side in this competition. They're back to full strength. They were last week. And I think we saw glimpses of their best against the Tigers, but certainly we didn't see their absolute best. This week, I think we see it. I think they fire a real shot to the rest of the competition here. Meanwhile, the Sharks, they've just been awful in recent games. Take out that final 10 minutes against Manly, and they've really shown us next to nothing. There was however many points in that last 10 minutes there. It was wild. It is Wade Graham's 250th NRL game, but I just feel a side that's averaging 34 points in their last 3, conceding that is, low on form, low on confidence, traveling to Western Australia, and not really galvanized playing as a unit. I do think all these factors are just a bridge too far for the Sharkies at the moment, and so I'm not even interested in that plus 12.5 start like I weighed up the plus 16 last week game. Not interested at all. I think Bunny's 13 plus, and therefore I would take them at that line. Move on to our
And
Sunday
Ryan
games.
has a guess that the best bet is all the best bet teams to cover minus 100 or something. That would be a fun one. He might not be that far off. You're going to have to wait a little bit longer because we've got 2 more teams to discuss who I am backing for best bets on Sunday.
Mixed matchup is on its way. Let's move into the Sunday games. 2 p.m. Eels v Dragons. We're at CommBank Stadium in Sydney. The line is set at minus 15.5 in the Eels' favour, who welcome back Dylan Brown from suspension. Lumi comes onto the wing for Wonga Blake. Wiramu Greg and Makahesi Makatoa also return on their bench. For the Dragons, this is also a big loss. Jack DeBellin fouled at the NRL judiciary also. He is out. Eels seem a logical tip in this one. And myself, I'm not turned off that big line. What was the line you got for the best bet there?
This one I didn't play the line. I played team to win both halves, and it's $1.81 on Toppy. Right, so you've got to be leading at halftime, but then you've also got to win the second half. So you could, in theory, you could win a game by 2 points if you won each by a field goal. Realistically, you could win a game by 4, 6, 8. You could win both halves. Right, but they also could win by more than 15, and then the likelihood would be that they'd win both halves. So that was my favourite way to play this one. Parramatta comes in 11th, but their season's on the line. My sim, for what it's worth, still gives them a 1 in 3 chance to make finals. So clearly, a game like this, you have to take care of business. And Brown back. Ultimately, is it too late? We won't know the answer to that question for a few weeks. And ironically, the Eels probably don't need Brown this week. They'd probably win pretty comfortably anyway. But nevertheless, I expect he'll have a huge showing and kind of play with a point to prove, and still a really talented player. And I have no reason to trust St. George. I thought they may get lapped by Manly a week ago, but did fight back in that game. And that, a decent start also kept them in the game for longer. And that was at home. This is at CommBank. DeBellin suspended. Too many kind of factors to like Parramatta. I don't think they're going to muck around. So as I said, just get that halftime lead. But then because points differential is so important, if they're up 2 or 4 or 6, whatever at halftime, obviously they're going to go on with it. But if they are up, 20 or more at halftime, you would be thinking, oh, I wish I just played the line. And that's true. But I think if they're up big, they should see it as an opportunity not just to win, but to really make a dent in the differential, which could be all important because we understand how many sides are, jockeying for these finals positions. So that's why I'm on yet another big favourite.
Yeah, I think team to win both halves is a great way to play this one. For what it's worth, I also like the Eels at the line here. The return of Dylan Brown really can't be understated. We saw with the Panthers last year with Jerome Luai and Cleary unavailable. They still have that chemistry. They come straight back into the side, ready to rip in right before finals. And as you said, the Eels sit in 11th, so it's time to go. It's as simple as that. I don't like that Brendan Hands has been left out of their side completely. I would have liked to have seen their spine for the majority of this year together at some stage in this one. I think that would have really helped, particularly when we're looking to win both halves in this one. But by the same token, Jack DeBellin is out for the Dragons, and he has been so big for them that all averaging 50 or so tackles. And they've also lost their last 9 away games in a row. So it's a shocking road record. They've just lost arguably their best player this year. Eels have won 10 of their last 13 against Dragons and 6 of their last 7 at CommBank. I think it's going to be a high-energy game where the Eels do score a bunch of points. And if I had to throw some anytime try-scorer options, I've got some smokies in Clint Gutherson and Bryce Cartwright. I can see them going down that edge for Cardi. I could see him scoring from a kick from Dylan Brown. And for Gutho, same reason I offered him as a take on Toppy try scorer a few times this year. He just has that energy. He's around everything. I think he'll score a lot. He's going to be there nearabouts.
Especially with that slick new haircut. I tell you, he's not a smoky. It's probably even money when they're such big favourites. But Cardi, that would be a little bit juicier odds. I certainly can't disagree. He's looking like Heisenberg from Breaking Bad.
We're not talking Josh Adokar, the $1.16 odds to score against Scotland like we saw in the World Cup. So, but yeah, you might get a bit of value if you do potentially factor in those anytime try scorer options there into a multi. Let's kick on to the final game of the round. It's Sunday, 4 p.m. Raiders v Tigers at GIO Stadium. The line is set at minus 11.5 in the Raiders' favour. Jordan Rapiner moves to fullback for them. Sebastian Chris to center, Kotrick on the wing, and Trevelyan is back for his first game since spraining his ACL. Great story there. Tom Starling drops out for him. For the Tigers, they are without Utu Ikamanu and Sean Bloor, two of their best. So Jake Simpkin and Asu Kiapola come in. No doubt they just need to win here to stay in touch with the top four. It looks like a favorable matchup. If there's a side to get your biggest win of the season on, it would be the Tigers, realistically. They got a 10-point win over the Dragons, right? And Tigers are the only side lower than them on the ladder. So this is their opportunity. Am I right, Winnie?
Yeah, I definitely believe so. And Zane takes the words out of my mouth. I was going to say this. This is for people in tipping comps. Often there's the joker where you can kind of double points. The best rounds to play that is where you've got the most sure things, or there's no sure things in this competition, but the most high likelihood tips. And I am tipping all 8 favourites this round for what it's worth. And not only that, I'm tipping a lot of these favourites with a high degree of confidence and to win big. So if you've got one up your sleeve, you're crazy kind of not to play it this week. I think you can bank a lot of points in your tipping comp. I've got the mixed matchup still to share, but in this particular game, again, it's the 5th of 5 big favourites who I am backing. Similarly to last game, it's a tried and tested rule of a good team off a bad performance. And that's what I have in Canberra, who some might argue. I haven't seen many people arguing with many of my best bets tonight. A lot of agreement that a lot of these sides might win big, which isn't always comforting. I like to see a bit of resistance because it's never that easy to win. I never would suggest it is. But, hey, we've got a sharp following, so maybe just plenty of other sharp minds thinking the same. For what it's worth, like Canberra was so bad last week, but they did come up against a red-hot opponent, and I didn't think they'd be as bad as they were, but I did understand it for the reasons of not only what Newcastle's been doing, but also the situation Canberra were in coming back from New Zealand and the emotion involved in that. That loss doesn't have to define the Raiders. I think Ricky's really going to challenge them to respond to that, and I do think Canberra are so fortunate that when they need a bounce back, what better could the doctor prescribe than a home game against the last place Wests, who are missing 2 important forwards, Uturkamanu and Bloor, as you said. I didn't hear if Croker was dropped or injured, but without sounding too harsh, I've been thinking for a few weeks now, he's played his 300th. He's really not in their strongest back line. I thought the move would be Chris to left centre and you bring Savage back. I'm not sure of Savage's status, but the question was there that Rapana is fullback, and that's what I've heard as well. Look, he's a guy who not my favourite option, but he's busy, and Kotrick is a nice in. I know some people, if they were pushing back on this tip, might say, yes, Canberra never wins big. It was a controversial 1-point win to Canberra last time these sides met, but West were at home. They're even more inconsistent away, and I think the fact that Canberra has not been able to go on with any of their wins is all the more reason to stay focused and to pile it on. And I think it's going to begin from the front. The Raiders pack are just going to get after it. And I would be surprised if West can match it with them.
Nothing for Jared Croker on the NRL casualty ward. Nothing for Savage either, but I did do a Google search. Hamstring injury in New South Wales Cup expected to return round 26. So unfortunately, he
okay. So maybe that would have been the go. But yeah, so it sounds like Croker's just kind of dropped on form. I mean, one of the reasons you pick him is to kick goals, but if he could kick goals, he might have beat New Zealand a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, spot on. That was the first thing my mind went to as well. No doubt the Raiders win this one for me. I'm very confident they win. But I actually am attracted to that Tigers line there, plus 11.5. And I'm not sure how high you can get it anywhere, but look, the Raiders have just not won a game by more than 10 this whole season. And when they did, it was against a Dragons side. I have to feel at this stage of the season, with nothing less to play for, that the Tigers, well, nothing left but pride in your jersey and for your fan base, right? That the Tigers have to show up here and show something. No doubt it gets harder when you're without Bloor and Utu Ikamanu, but I just get the feeling here that at the least the Tigers can show up and try hard. They have played nice in patches this year, and Raiders have lapsed, really shown a lapse in concentration in some patches this year. Notably, that Dragons game I just referenced, where they really let the Dragons back into the game. And so you put those two together, I think that line there for the Tigers, rather, is somewhat attractive. But the stats show us here that the Raiders have won their last 6 in a row against the Tigers, and the Tigers have not won in Canberra since 2018, over 5 years. But yeah, Winnie, gut feeling, Tigers, they can score in patches. Raiders, they can concede in patches. I could see a world there where the Tigers do put up a fight and get that plus 11.5 line. I can see you typing out a mega mixed matchup. Is that ready to go?
It is ready to go. So I like 5 big favorites this week. So why don't we have some fun with that, and let's play those 5 favorites to outscore their opponents by 60 combined. Now, importantly, they don't all have to win. I think they all will win, but they don't all have to win, because if I like 5 teams to all cover their lines that are kind of anywhere from 8, 8.5 through to Para's line is 15.5. We're taking it at a different angle, but I think they're all going to win big. I'd love to go 5-0 this round. Clearly, you get much bigger odds if you multi all 5 best bets, but you don't need that to occur. Maybe just 1 or 2 of them win by 30 or 40 and, cover the 60 on their own. And the others can play tighter, or there could be an upset in there. There's results every week that surprise us. So, again, just because I'm on a winning streak doesn't mean I'm sure everything's going to come through, but I like the approach here because I think there's real potential for blowouts in all of those 5 games. And, who knows? We could get into the Canberra game and they might still need to win by 20 or 30 to win our bet, but they'd be capable of that. But we also might already be 30 or 40 in front by the time Sunday already rolls around. So there's massive variance in this, but I think it's a better than odds-on chance of happening. So $2.15, you can have up to 200 on that. And if you still need a Toppy account, we haven't convinced you yet, maybe this is the week you want to get involved if you like the sound of some of those big favourites. We've done well when we've come up with creative combos like this before. The code is TP Live if you need a Toppy account.
And just to be clear, if our teams were to go 60 plus early, we'd still need to wait until that final game because a loss could drag that total back down. Am I right in that?
Yes, it's combined margin. That's right.
Absolutely. Final question for you before we let you get out of here. Are the best bets each week in order of preference? Like, is your first one which one you're most keen on, or is it in no particular order?
No, they're kind of like my children. I don't have any real favorites. People always ask me, what's your favorite best bet, which is code for like, which one should I really load up on? And I never say that. I say, look, if you watch the pod, if you listen, you might hear it in my voice, like which ones I'm really bullish on. You might hear me share more and stronger reasons for certain bets, and that might be the case. But actually, the order I share the best bets is chronological order as much as I possibly can to make it clear for people to find and for people to follow them.
I like it. I like Ryan's comment saying he's in line to be the next mixed matchup maker. Ryan, I'll be reaching out. Yeah.
100 to 1, that would be some crazy odds, but that actually could possibly occur too.
And stay tuned, Ryan. I'll be reaching out after this with the contract. Jeff, you won't be getting a contract, mate. Only messing. That's all we've got time for tonight, guys. So from myself, thank you very much for being here with us. Best of luck with all your bets this weekend, and we'll see you Sunday around 6:30 p.m. to recap everything. Over to you, Winnie, to say goodbye.
Yeah, I couldn't possibly pick my favorite admin. That would be like picking my favorite dad. Too many podfathers to choose from. Love them all. Appreciate everything everyone does to make this show possible. Hopefully, followers appreciated a big episode that we promised, but most importantly, I hope it delivers now. The tips are cast out there, and we hope that this form can continue through, this really exciting stretch of the season. So enjoy the rest of your week, guys. Enjoy the round. Best of luck when you're punting. Always do it responsibly. And we will see you Sunday to recap it all. Join my main man here, Clarkey, and can't wait to unpack it all with you on Sunday, mate. So I hope you have a good week until then too. Do it with me this week. Give me a Lego.